You're just a road traffic away from acquiring a disability.
Yeah.
You're just one sexual escapade away from acquiring an STI, something that will be with you for the rest of your life, such as HIV.
I think irrespective, it's a devastating news.
Yeah.
However, teachings on HIV has come far enough that most people would know now that it's not a death sentence.
Yeah.
So as sad as it is, maybe they would not react the way they would have reacted 10 years ago.
You alone know the extent of the pain you're feeling. You alone know the extent of the thoughts that crash through your mind because of that one diagnosis. You alone go through the emotions. It gets you to a certain place where you kind of feel nobody else can tap into what you're really, really feeling to 100%.
I think sometimes knowing exactly what is wrong, speaking with the doctor, it doesn't have to be their own doctor, but if someone has the diagnosis, with the doctor, find out exactly the do's, the don'ts, what to do. I think it helps from the caregivers and the more information you have, the more you're empowered.
Welcome to the Med Squad podcast. Now, sometimes you never know what the news of a diagnosis can do to you. And we know of the fictional character known as Walter White, who went from being a simple chemistry teacher to a drug lord, a drug baron. But that is fiction. And hopefully it doesn't happen in other places. But on the Med Squad podcast, we're going to talk about something that could affect you closer to home than what you see on TV. Talking about the weight of a diagnosis and finding strength in uncertainty. My name is Yafesi Musoke, and I have some experts with me who will introduce themselves. Please, we start to my left.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayanseyi Elizabeth Akanmu. You can call me Shay. I'm the VP in charge of NCDs at Zuri Health. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to have you.
Hi.
Yes, that's you.
I'm Dennis. I'm head of the mental health department at Zuri Health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now, as we talk about what happens to people when they receive a tough diagnosis, and tough diagnosis, of course, we're not talking about a flu or a cold or maybe a broken leg or something like that. We're talking, of course, things to diabetes, talking about cancer, HIV. Mm-hmm. So take us to the moment of impact, like when that moment when the patient hears the words, you have whatever it may be, this and this.
Okay.
What usually happens emotionally?
Emotionally speaking, the response is varied. It depends with a lot of factors. For instance, it might depend if the individual you're talking about has already had an experience with that particular condition at a previous time in their life.
Yeah.
The educational level, the financial status, the social support around them will engage in how they respond to such a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Even something that you mentioned, breaking a leg, it might be catastrophic to someone regarding to where they are in life. So in most cases, especially when you're talking about diagnoses such as those that entail chronic diseases, such as it might be HIV, it might be a child being born with cerebral palsy. How does someone present in such a scenario? In most cases, you'll see a bit of denialism creeping in because someone will be like, nah, there's no way I can have such a condition. Some will resort to anger. Some will be aggressive even to you, and some will present as numb. They'll act like whatever you just said to them didn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay? They might be numb. They might present with a feeling of disbelief that this kind of condition cannot happen to me. Yeah.
And so at that point, when you've given them the news and you see the reaction, do you have a follow-up? Because some might get angry and start throwing things. Others might just break down and cry. Do you stick around and recommend follow through with the emotional side? Or do you just start on now, let's look for the intervention that will help you?
Well, I feel like that's something that we need to improve, especially on the African continent. We, especially practitioners, they don't really present themselves in a way that is accommodative in such a response. So they'll just present the diagnosis and then they'll be like, so what do you want us to do? Instead of engaging with the patient in terms of, let me present with you all the facts regarding to this condition that has happened to you and how we can manage it further.
Oh, so it does need to improve.
Yeah, it does need to improve.
So is in our African context, is there anything about the way we are generally, because we have a lot of similarities culturally and communally, that make it harder to give heavy diagnoses to patients?
I believe so.
I think it depends. Like he mentioned, I think level of education, maybe exposure matters. For instance, I'll use the example of HIV. I think irrespective, it's a devastating news.
Yeah.
However, teachings on HIV has come far enough that most people would know now that it's not a death sentence.
Yeah.
So as sad as it is, maybe they would not react the way they would have reacted 10 years ago. That's exposure. But maybe for someone who doesn't have as much knowledge, the reaction would be what people would have 10 years ago. They just assume, oh, that's a death sentence. So
is it exact? Yes.
Even the stigma bit in terms of the African context.
Stigma.
For instance, I remember way back a few years ago, I worked with a mother who had a kid with cerebral palsy. She lived in Huruma. And the neighbors were afraid to use the same cloth line with her because they said, if we use the cloth line, it might lead to us developing or maybe bringing forth kids with the same condition. So in terms of the African context, there is a bit of stigma. And when you talk about stigma, especially, there are three facets to it. There is stigma where we say it's public stigma, where I have behaviors that are discriminatory against someone with a certain diagnosis. It might be HIV, it might be cancer, it might be you having a kid with a special need, living with a special need.
Yeah.
And then there's a self-stigma, where you yourself develop shame with regard to the same condition that you're presenting with. The last one, I might say something sort in the line of structural stigma, where the government engages in developing policies which might intentionally or maybe unintentionally limit the opportunities of people with a certain chronic diagnosis. For instance, it might be as simple as you being involved in a road traffic accident and you get amputated on both legs. Will you be able to access a building without lifts?
Yeah.
Without a lift?
Okay.
Becomes a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Such and such. Yeah.
Okay. So now on the Med Squad podcast, when we come back, we'll be improving. As you heard Dennis say, there are some areas that need improvement. So we'll try and play our role in improving how you deal with the immediate aftershock of a heavy diagnosis. Stick around.
Hey there! Welcome to Zuri Health HQ, where Africa's finest medical minds meet modern care. I'm Yafesi, your host on the Med Squad.
Here, care is personal. It's not just diagnosis, it's direction. From a cough to managing chronic illness, we listen and we lead.
Every symptom has a story. We listen, explain, and act together.
Nutrition is not just about food. It's fuel, it's healing, it's prevention. We help you eat with purpose, for energy, for recovery, and for lifelong health.
We are not just lab coats, we are detectives, and your blood speaks when we translate.
Your mental health is not a luxury. It's your health, period. Whether it's trauma, depression, anxiety, or even wanting to speak to someone, we are here for you.
At Zuri Health, collaboration is our strongest prescription. We connect expertise across Africa to deliver care that is smart, affordable, and people first.
This is the Med Squad. Real conversations, real health, real people. From your inbox to your bedside, we're with you.
Welcome back to the Med Squad podcast, and our conversations get really candid here. And as we talk about dealing with tough or heavy diagnoses, something comes to mind. There's a I don't know if it was a study where the youth are more afraid of STDs than they are getting pregnant, or is it the other way around? And I was just thinking, being told you're pregnant when you're young is also a heavy diagnosis. So now when a diagnosis sinks in, whether it's a disease or pregnancy or any other condition that could be a heavy diagnosis, can there be a sense of loneliness, and how does that manifest, or what does it look like?
I think for that sense is especially for news where you can't tell anybody. If it's something like, let me see, cancer, for instance, or pregnancy, like you said, these are news that can be so devastating, depending on the time that you're told. If someone in their 30s, they find out that they're pregnant, it will not be as devastating as someone who is 13, 14, 16. At that point in time, you can't tell anybody. You can't tell your friends. You can't tell your family members. So that's where the sense of loneliness comes from. For cancer, for example, now it doesn't have as much stigma, but depending on maybe the kind of family you came from, the kind of stage of cancer, if it's, end of life news where, there's no hope, it can be so scary to tell your family members. And like you mentioned earlier, Walter White, he knew he was going to die. But I think because of how devastating he was, he couldn't tell anybody. And that sense of loneliness probably contributed to his crimes because he felt, I have to do something on my own to prepare for when it happens. So I think that loneliness is probably worse than the ailment sometimes.
Because even to add to that, I feel like when you're having the condition by yourself as an individual, there is a lonely place where it gets you. In essence, you alone know the extent of the pain you're feeling. You alone know the extent of the thoughts that crash through your mind because of that one diagnosis. You alone go through the emotions. Yeah. It gets you to a certain place where you kind of feel nobody else can tap into what you're really, really feeling to 100%. And probably another thing, some diagnoses might affect the way you live your life. Say you're being invited to a wedding during the weekend, then you have a flare-up, then you have to cancel. If this happens, say repeated for maybe 4-5 times, do you feel like the people around you will keep on inviting you to these events? The answer is no. Yeah? That's how loneliness kind of sucks when it comes.
Families help or make things worse? Because, or is it just, I didn't know, so I was giving you birthday cake and you have a diagnosis that doesn't really work with that?
That's a good question, actually, because I feel like it's two-sided in a way, because most families don't present the same way. There are families that can be supportive, there are families that can't be supportive, regardless of the fact if they are financially able to help you out or not, emotionally able to help you out or not, even the social support that you need. So even when you talk about things maybe such as tough love, it depends. If it's coming from an honest place, or a place where the person who is engaging in this tough love is really concerned about your situation, then it works. Because it helps you in terms of self-care. Say if you're given a diagnosis such as schizophrenia, you need to take care of yourself a bit more. You need to shower, you need to use proper dressing, clean clothing. You need tough love in terms of especially adherence to medication, because even us, when we don't have necessarily a chronic illness, adherence to medication is quite tough. Especially the last week, you're like, I'm already feeling straight. I'm already feeling good. So there's no need for me to adhere to medication. Do you feel like in such an instance, a family member was to say, no, Yafesi, please complete the medication that you have? Will that be upheld? It will be, yeah? On the flip side of tough love, some people might take it, if it's coming from a controlling place, and if it's not coming from a nurturing place, then it becomes condescending. It might feel as this guy is trying to control me to an extent. So the person
those weddings, the auntie is like, don't give that one. So give that one meat.
It becomes like you are trying to really insert yourself in their life, so they don't get the urgency of taking care of their own decisions.
So Sheyi, you are the one who leads the NCD programs at Zuri Health. So how are you integrating mental health into long-term care? Because this does affect mental health, definitely.
Yes, because we believe that, health is not just about the physical. And for anybody who is on medication, and that's what chronic disease is, you're going to be on medication more than not for life. And like you said, even sometimes you just have maybe malaria, you just have a headache, sticking to your medication can be hard. Even as someone who works in a hospital, there are times where I don't stick to my medication, which I know is not good. So now comparing to someone who has a disease for life and they have to stick to their medication. And even apart from that, it's ongoing. Sometimes you're not in the mood, sometimes you're just devastated. Even when you feel like you've accepted that diagnosis, it can be 10 years in and then you're just frustrated. Maybe what you're doing is no longer working and you need to make some changes. And then that depression can hit. Sometimes you're like, you know what? I don't care any longer. So that's when we realize that it's not just about taking your medication. It's not just about doing the necessary lab tests. It's not just about your doctor or your nurse following up with you. It's also about the mental health side of it. And that's why we have the mental health aspect integrated in our continuous care program. So for everybody who is enrolled, they have access to not just the lab, not just the medication, not just the nutritionist or the doctors, but also a therapist. So we have someone who can speak with you about how you're feeling, check in regularly. Sometimes, not everybody's going to be interested at that point in time, but, they come to understand and they like the idea.
Continuous care program. That's the CCP I keep hearing about.
Yes.
Especially in the mental health, it comes in terms of when you're dealing with a chronic diagnosis, there will be a very large extent, your projected future will be altered. What do I mean by this? Say you're a lady and you have a diagnosis that requires for you maybe your uterus to be removed. What's your before that? What's your projected future? You wanted to have children. Yeah. See how that alters everything. So the mental health aspect comes in terms of, because a chronic illness touches on the relationships around you, it touches on your work, it touches on your health, it touches on your future. These are usually the primary thoughts that will be running through your mind every time after you get that diagnosis. So you really need a mental health specialist to work with you in terms of dealing with these thoughts.
Okay. So you wanted to add to that?
No, I think he explained perfectly.
Okay. So now when we come back on the Med Squad podcast, we'll be looking at building resilience in Africa. Stick around. Welcome back. This is the Med Squad podcast, where health meets humanity, where we have candid conversations about health and wellness in Africa, and where we encourage you to share the things that you learned, things that you liked, things that you learned from. Please share them. Don't be stingy. And it's all part of the communal help here. So how do we build a system that supports people through illness emotionally? Because this is something it needs a whole systemic approach.
True.
Yeah.
In terms of building resilience, I believe we need to have a multifaceted approach to it. First of all, we need to tackle the cultural aspect, in which we need to tackle the big issue, which is stigma. We need to realize any condition, any medical condition can happen to anybody at any given time. You're just a road traffic away from acquiring a disability. You're just one sexual escapade away from acquiring an STI. Something that will be with you for the rest of your life, such as HIV. So we need to realize that all these diseases are at our doorsteps. So the stigma bit, we really need to have a discussion about it. Secondly, in terms of integrating therapy, we need to realize therapy is there to help. And it's usually self-centered, because the client is the one who directs therapy. Nobody will force you to do anything in therapy. Nobody changes your mind. Therapy is more like a mirror to what you're presenting to the therapist. Going to therapy shouldn't be frowned upon. It's something that needs to be encouraged, especially in the African context. There need to be policies in place that help everybody have the opportunities to live a quality of life to the maximum extent on this African continent. So that's where the government comes in.
All right. Is digital therapy the future?
It is.
I think it is. I think one advantage that digital has over physical is the anonymity of it. For many people, as much as they have come to terms that, they need therapy, they may not feel comfortable telling someone face to face. And that's where digital come in. It could be over a phone call. It could be over WhatsApp. It could be over text message. It could even be over Google Meet. You just, hide your cameras. But I think for some people, that anonymity is very important until they get to that stage where they are comfortable and can now see the doctor physically.
After they've walked through their denial phase. Yeah.
After working through the denial phase.
Plus, there's the cost with regards to, you don't have to physically visit a facility. Because especially if I'm having a therapy session at a facility, I have to count the cost of transportation to the place, the cost of therapy, then transportation back. Additionally to that, remember the planning in terms of visiting a facility, this needs time. So you have probably to take a day off work. For someone who is probably self-employed or even works is paid per day, this already counts as a loss a loss of income in that particular day that he chooses to go to the facility. Whereas, say, a facility like Zuri, you just engage with the doctor, and say, I'll be off work at 8 p.m. Can we have a session then? And the session is virtual from the comfort of your home, which is kind of easy to most people, to be honest.
For digital therapy. The part of the cost of either therapy or even sessions after diagnosis, sometimes you need to have people escort you. So you might have one or two people escorting you. So the cost is also triple.
Sure.
So just to mention, for anybody who is on our continuous care program, which is the chronic disease management program at Zuri Health, the cost of therapy is free, actually. So the only thing that they get to pay for are the lab tests and the medication. But talking to a doctor, a nutritionist, or a therapist is free, because we want people to be encouraged to have these sessions. We don't want them to think of the cost just because of their, whatever disease that they're dealing with. And even with insurance or without insurance, we want them to be able to afford it. So we ensure to do that to them for free.
So when you're talking about therapy sessions, they're digital?
Yes, for digital therapy sessions, they're free. And we find that people tend to prefer them. Like I said, that confidentiality. And they're not, like I say, close off. You don't just have to speak to the therapist about your condition. It could be about anything. And that anonymity gives them the freedom to speak with them, genuinely.
There's an aspect of tough or heavy diagnosis that maybe we don't speak too much about, or we should speak of. A patient comes in. This patient is escorted by a loved one or a caregiver, and the patient doesn't speak the language, or you don't speak the patient's language. They don't speak. So you have to break the news to the relative, and they translate it to them. Is there, like a fear of if this person is not trained in how to process the information or to give the information in a digestible manner, that the patient might be given either an exaggerated or a catastrophic version of the story? And what role do family members play in actually the diagnosis?
Okay, so we try as much as possible in a proper hospital setting not to give diagnosis to anyone apart from the patient. So we try not to use family members to translate. So if the patient doesn't understand the language, you find another healthcare worker or someone who is not related to the patient, because then you can trust that they have no ball in the game to say, and they can give accurate translations. Also, it's preferably someone with a medical, license. Not just anyone, because of course, patient confidentiality. You don't want to give out a diagnosis to someone who doesn't have the rights to hear the diagnosis. So we try as much as possible to do that. If it's maybe in rare cases, maybe rural settings where there's no proper let's say opportunity for translation, you have to do that. I think you probably have to, but there are ways, maybe through diagram, through finger pointing, just to ensure that the patient understands. And you can have a follow-up session where you provide a translator that is not related, so to ensure that they understand the diagnosis. And your second question on, if you could repeat, please.
Like what's the family's role? Like, what if I happen to be
Wait, let me add on that. Then you
yes,
can come back to this. Actually, that has happened because Zuri is currently engaged in medical camps all over the country.
Yeah.
And when Zuri goes to these medical camps, where there's a physical presence in terms of the practitioner and the guys on the ground, the guys who are seeking treatment, you might find, especially the elderly who don't even speak Kiswahili or English.
Yeah.
So usually Zuri outsources medical practitioners from that particular county. And in most cases, they speak the same language as the person who is seeking treatment.
Yeah.
So it kind of becomes a bit easier in terms of translation. So you're having another medical practitioner translating the diagnosis to the patient.
So now in the case where I am a family member and I overhear the diagnosis, or maybe I do lip reading as a side class, but, and maybe I'm just nosy, but in reality, I do care about the patient. So like, what role can I play? So I know the diagnosis also, instead of adding to the aggravation or aggravating the situation, or how can I show support? What can I do in light of the diagnosis?
Okay. That's a good question, because most people usually don't know what to do, especially in such a case, because you might see someone in pain and you're really not sure what to do. I'll say we can do it in 3 phases. One of it might be because the person already has a chronic condition presented to them. Obviously, the finances will be a bit muted on their end. So there might be a family member might be required to kind of take hold of the finances in terms of the treatment. The second bit, I would say, it's the social support. And by social support, I mean you being able to be there for them in terms of aiding daily activities. It might be pushing the wheelchair, it might be taking them for the appointments and what have you. Then another crucial bit might be the emotional part of it all. As much as you can't really empathize and put yourself in their shoes 100%, they need to realize you as a family member are there for them. Yeah. That you realize this is the condition and it's a journey they're going to walk, they're going to pursue in terms of engaging in seeking healthcare for this particular condition. You need to be there for them. Yeah, they need to feel you being there for them, emotionally speaking. And what do I mean by emotional support? You need to encourage them. That if you do pursue this and this healthcare, your prognosis might be able to be a bit better than as it is at the moment. You need to validate what they're feeling. If they say, I'm feeling this amount of pain, please believe them. It might be they are saying the truth. So don't try to tell them, just get on with it. Yeah. You see? Encourage, validate them so that their emotional needs are well met in this particular time of their life. Yeah.
All right. So when we come back, you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think personally, I also try to encourage these family members to see someone, even if it's a therapist or maybe other family members who have someone with this kind of conditions as well. Because if they're not just bearing the financial aspect, but the physical aspect, they can be caregivers, burnouts. You get tired of being the ones, because someone is sick sometimes, you're the ones who bear all the burden.
Especially the spouses.
Yes. It could be financial, it could be physical. You have to take care of them. And you can't put the frustration on them because they're sick, obviously. So you need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
You need someone that can also be your own pillar. So it's always encouraged that not just the people with chronic conditions see a therapist, their family members as well.
Yeah.
Does it also affect, say, where there are children involved? So if they're either a parent or a close relative, so if I'm the one taking care, do I have to also deal with or get training or therapy to deal with how to communicate this to children?
Essentially, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
The moment you start therapy, especially with the patient who has a chronic illness, you're supposed to encourage them to have a family session, like a group session setting, where we all discuss what's going on in the family. Everybody voices their inner thoughts and how it is affecting them. then you work on ways how to progress with this kind of scenario that was presented to a family. Yeah.
Right.
So that somebody doesn't feel like they have repressed thoughts or emotions. Yeah.
When we come back on the Med Squad podcast, we'll be looking at final thoughts regarding tough diagnoses. Stick around. Welcome back. This is the Med Squad podcast, and anything you find here can be shared, especially if it's helpful to you. And when we talk about tough diagnosis, believe me, any information in a positive direction is definitely helpful. And so we want to also get into some final thoughts. Well, like to anyone who's just received a diagnosis and is probably feeling fear or is scared, what would you say to them?
I'll say it's not the end of the world. And your life still matters. It matters to us, it matters to your family, it matters to those around you. For the government, it might matter in terms of taxes, but your life does matter.
Your life individually, yes.
Yeah.
It does.
So please do take care of yourself. Please follow the directions of the doctors around you who are there to work with you on this particular journey. And everything as life was intended, so it shall it be.
And to the families who are supporting someone, the caregivers, what did you say? Because you said caregiver burnout.
Yeah. I think you take it one day at a time. Everything gets tiring. Even your job gets tiring. But, you take it one day at a time. And these people are your loved ones. You don't want to lose them. You cherish every moment. And, I'm a strong believer in asking questions. I think sometimes knowing exactly what is wrong, speaking with the doctor, it doesn't have to be their own doctor, but if someone has the diagnosis, with the doctor, find out exactly the do's, the don'ts, what to do. I think it helps from the caregiver's angle.
Yeah.
The more information you have, the more you're empowered.
About the exact disease that you have.
Yeah.
About the available treatment procedures and about the right coping mechanisms pertaining that particular condition.
Okay. Oh, thank you for your expertise.
Yeah.
Yes. I ask, you see, they are available to answer. So ask questions. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise.
Thank you.
And for you, you may have a diagnosis that shook your world, but with the right care and compassion and actually possibly asking questions, you can find strength in uncertainty. And hopefully you're finding strength on the Med Squad podcast. Follow us on all our platforms at the Med Squad Pod and share this information. Share this episode with someone who needs it. And we'll see you next time.